Hey folks, last week I talked about Corvettes as collectibles. This week I'm actually going to point out some of those collectibles, the most valuable collectible Corvettes in existence. I wanted to only have 10. Unfortunately, there's a lot of very collectible Corvettes, a lot of high dollar ones, and they really encompass a lot of what I was talking about last week. Race success, famous owners. The reason why I didn't mention numbers matching last week, I know a lot of you watching the videos might say numbers matching, paperwork. The reason why I didn't discuss a lot of these racing Corvettes that are super high value, they don't have the original motor, and that's okay for a race car. Anyway, let's just jump right into this. I have some of my periodicals here, Corvette Masterpieces by Jerry Heasley and Corvette Classics by Mike Mueller. Okay, I'm going to start off with the SERV. Okay, SERV actually stands for Chevrolet Experimental Research Vehicle 1. And what it is, you can see a picture of it here, that's actually Zora Arkus Duntov Racing. It was an experimental vehicle in the early 60s to test out the concept of independent suspension, which actually made it into the production car, and believe it or not, a motor in the back. Very interesting. SERV recently sold at auction for $1.5 million. The title of the video is Million Dollar Vets, folks. But the truth of the matter is some of these Corvettes have sold at auction or privately for multiples of that number. As a matter of fact, the most recent high-end Corvette L88 that sold at auction was $3.8 million. So I thought it was safe to say million dollar vets, but the fact is some of these are worth quite a bit more than $1 million. Next on my list is the Corvette Grand Sport. 6 of these were made. They were all-out racing cars. They were made to race against Carroll Shelby's Cobras, and they were very successful, and they're worth. The last one that didn't sell at auction, it was bid up to $6 million, and it didn't sell. The owner took it back home. Here's some other pictures of the Corvette Grand Sport. Here it is actually racing in the Bahamas, interior of the Grand Sport. This was a Grand Sport. When they thought that they could make it even faster, they cut the top off. So there's actually some Grand Sports out there without a top. Okay, moving on to the next one on our list here. It's our first dip into the C3. This is the ZL1 Corvette right here. It was an L88 big block motor, but it was actually aluminum architecture. So the ZL1 was super expensive. As a matter of fact, the cost of the motor was almost as much as the cost of the whole car. There were only 2 ZL1s built, and bearing that in mind, you could imagine how expensive they are. None of them have changed hand recently. None of the 2 have changed hand recently, so I don't have any real hard evidence of how much it's worth. But the truth of the matter is, if I had to venture a guess, doing all my research, I'd say it's worth $4 million. Okay, let's go to the next one on our list. This is 1968 and 69 L88s. Here you see an L88 motor. The really only difference, the obvious difference with an L88 Corvette is the high-rise hood. Now, if you look at the motor here, you'll see that there is no air cleaner. The air cleaner was actually attached to the top of the hood. It sucked down, and that was the air cleaner for the L88. So that was 68, 69 L88s. A few more of those were made than the actual 67 L88s, which I have right here. 67 L88s are probably the most, aside from the Grand Sport, the 68 L88 is going to be the most valuable, expensive Corvette out there. You can see the motor is similar to the 68. You can see how innocuous it is. Just looks like a regular Corvette, obviously, until you pull up to a street light and this thing roasts the tires. Roasts the tires. So that's the 68 L88. As I just said, they sell for multiples of millions of dollars when they come to auction. And some of these, despite the fact that I get auction results, all these magazines over here, every single one of these, and going over to up here, these are all monthly auction results, folks. So I'm trying to avoid hyperbole here by saying that these cars are worth $1 million. I actually have proof of the sales for these because I get auction results on a monthly basis. Some of them I'm not going to have evidence of sales because they very rarely come to auction and they very rarely sell privately. Another one I have on my list is the Corvette number 3, 1953 Corvette. The earliest one that was available to the public was Corvette number 3. The first 2, I believe the first one's in the Heritage collection, and the second one they actually used it for demonstration to see if they could burn it or crash it and see if people would be saving it. So the Gerbeck brothers over here, I have a poster that I got from Gerbeck brothers over there in Jersey. These guys are crazy Corvette fanatics. They have an awesome collection of Corvettes, and they own Corvette number 3. Moving on from there, I turn us to the Chip Miller 1960 Briggs & Cunningham race car. Talking about famous owners, well, Briggs Cunningham, Chip Miller. Chip Miller is the founder of Bloomington Gold, very famous. This race car is Very well known. It's very expensive. Chip owned it. Briggs Cunningham owned it and raced it. Here's some more pictures of it. A spectacular car. So that's our first dip into the C1 Corvette, or second dip into the C1 Corvette. I forgot about the Corvette Corvette. Moving on from there, we have the Roger Penske L88. Again, a famous owner. The motor is quite possibly not the original one. Again, this is why I didn't mention numbers matching last week, because it hasn't deterred the value of some of these L88s at all. You can see it's got the chopped down roof line to give it a little, I guess it was for aerodynamic purposes, maybe to keep the driver cool, who knows. Either way, Roger Penske banged around in this thing for years. It was a Traco built L88, phenomenal motor, lots of race success, and a huge amount of value there. So there are some pictures of that. There's a back version of it. Next on our list here is the 1963 Z06 big tank Fuelie with knockoffs and two-eared spinners. I know that's a mouthful. This is an extremely valuable one-off car. In 1963, they had difficulty with these wheels. They were porous, and they couldn't get them to sit on the tires. They constantly deflated. This car actually made it to production with those wheels. Now, the regular spinners for the cars had 3 ears. This one came away from the plant with 2 ears. So all these anomalies make this a very expensive car. The Z06 edition had a gigantic fuel tank behind the seats. It was for an endurance racer that was 36 gallons of fuel. The fuel injection unit is a work of art. This car has a lot going for it. It's a 63, so remember last week I mentioned first and last. This was the first edition of the C2 Corvette 63. Fuel injection was a rare option. The wheels, the gas tank, this was an endurance racer, and it's super expensive. Moving on from there, we go to the Baldwin Motion Phase 3 GT. This was a stunning car. Baldwin Motion was a shop in Baldwin, New York, and Joe Rosen and his crew would take regular Corvettes right from the dealership. There was a Baldwin Chevrolet. Baldwin Chevrolet would ship the cars down to Baldwin Motion, and these guys would do all sorts of crazy things to these cars. You could see the gigantic motor. It's an aluminum 427, quite similar to the ZL1. Take a look at the front of it. It's completely unique with those headlights. The back is unique with those tail lights. It's got vents over here. If you get a chance, look it up. I'm sure it's online. I had the very unique experience of actually seeing one of these sell at auction. And folks, not all auctions are like Barrett Jackson, where everyone's standing there and there's beautiful models and there's vendors everywhere. Me and about 20 guys were standing outside down in Connecticut in the snow, freezing our butts off. So anyway, not all auctions are created equal. The car was a red one, red and black, and the gentleman standing next to me, who turned out to be Kevin McKay, who's a very famous Corvette restorer, he was bidding this car up to a ridiculous amount of money. Afterwards, I asked him, and he said that he was contracted by the original owner of the car to get the car back at any cost, and Kevin McKay was going to do the restoration on it. Speaking of Kevin McKay is the creator of the 1969 see-through L88 Corvette. Folks, I had the very large pleasure and honor of seeing this vehicle in person. Kevin McKay actually does drive this thing around, so it's not just a display. It's an actual vehicle, a real L88 that they made it into a fantastic display. You could see all the intricacies of the inside of the drivable L88 Corvette. A spectacular car and very unique, and it's a real showstopper. Folks, I could have went on. There's other $1 million Corvettes in here. I stopped at the see-through Corvette. Hopefully you get an idea, if we're talking about collectibles, that Corvettes are bona fide blue chip collectibles. Auction results show that plenty of Corvettes sell for over $1 million. They're commodities. Sometimes these things end up being commodities, just like pork belly. Unfortunately, a lot of these will never get driven. Here's our Corvette Chevrolet poster there. But folks, just so you know, Corvettes are indeed collectible. If you think you have one that you think might become collectible, drop me a message and we'll talk about it. Our next video, I'm actually going to dip my toe in the water of collectibles. I'm going to consult my crystal ball, and I'm going to come up with 10 Corvettes that I feel are going to be collectible in the future, that are affordable now. Folks, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Corvettes are awesome. They're not just fun to look at. They're not just fun to drive, but they're super collectible if you get the right ones, folks. Thank you so much. Next week I'm going to do a video, like I said, on my on what I feel is going to be a collectible Corvette. And I think the week after that I'm going to do a video on concept Corvettes, which is also really cool as well. Folks, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for watching my videos. I appreciate it. I hope you're learning something. Take care and thanks again.